And this is a Fox News alert. We are still here tonight as we investigate what has happened near Philadelphia as an Amtrak train has crashed. The Associated Press is reporting that it is train 188 traveling from Washington, D.C. up to New York City on Tuesday night when it crashed. These trains go all the time. The Amtrak, the Acela, this is a very commonly traveled route. I'm sure this train has done this route many, many times before. And as we see the pictures together, we're looking at it as you are for the very first time, or one of them. As you can see the flashlights of what appear to be the first responders on scene trying to get inside of these train cars, which have clearly been derailed. The information that we have right now, and please bear in mind that as we get breaking news in a situation like this, it often turns out to be incorrect. But what we are hearing right now is that the front of the train was going into a turn when it began to shake. An employee who works for the Associated Press, do not know if it is an actual journalist or just an employee of the AP, was on the train and said it appeared that the train did go off the tracks, and one assumes from that recitation he or she meant that is what caused the crash. That is what happened at the crash, as opposed to something happened and then afterward the train went off the tracks, as you can see here. But you can see one car on its side, another car right behind it. Can't see ambulances in this particular shot here, but it does appear to be some emergency first responders on the scene, and clearly the news helicopters have gotten to the scene. There are some people tweeting out photos of the events and the inside of the train, and we can see that there are first responders on the scene. They appear to be firefighters, and you can see passengers with bloody limbs, bloody legs in one particular picture that we are seeing. Still alive. There's no fatalities from the pictures that we've seen, just two that I've seen so far that have been tweeted out online, and yet it is still very early. And so often when you see a disaster like this, there are fatalities. We hope that is not the case here tonight. We are talking to Amtrak, trying to get the latest information. We hope to have something for you in a moment, as they will obviously be updating this situation, which appears grave at this hour. Again, this is a very commonly traveled route. You can take the Amtrak train north. The trains, most of them run virtually every hour on the hour. And it is about a 4-hour journey, a little bit more depending on the train you take, from D.C. up to New York. This happened just near Philadelphia, is all we're being told. Do not know. Now we're being told in Philadelphia, although we'll find out more on the location. The police are swarming. It's called the Port Richmond area, if you're familiar with that terrain. And that's where the crash occurred. They're telling people that they need to get back. A former Congressman Patrick Murphy was on the train. He's the one who's been tweeting out these photos of the firefighters helping people in the wreckage. And we are going to try to reach out to him and see if he can give us some information on what he observed, other than the train was going into a turn when it took a shook, or when it began to shake, according to one eyewitness. Again, the latest information is that several people appear to be injured. And our Trace Gallagher is live in our breaking newsroom with more on this now. Trace?
The number we're getting, Megan, is 50. We just talked to Amtrak, and as you might imagine, they are slammed right now trying to get information out. The reason first responders aren't on scene yet is because this happened just a short time ago. The helicopters were able to get up in the air before the first responders actually got on scene. As you said, the train, some of the passengers said, started to shake before it went off. Now, we have seen a number of these types of derailments before, and usually, more times than not, it's because the train hits something on the track, some kind of a truck or car that got on the track. In this case, we don't see any indication there. We finally see the first signs the first responders on. They're trying to triage, and what they'll do is they will go through and they will get the passengers out, and just like they do in a MASH unit, they will triage them, the worst injured to the lesser injured, and they will treat them as follows. As we all know, these Amtrak trains, and this one particular, Megan, you and I have been on a number of times, they are designed to actually go off the rails when they hit something. They're not designed to coil up like an accordion. The best scenario is for these things to actually scatter, to go off the tracks, and that way people stand a much better chance of survival. It's normally the front cars, the ones that are closest to any impact are the ones that are closest to the actual derailment that are the hardest impacted. In this case, it's just impossible right now for us to tell. But the latest information we have are that between 8 and 9 cars actually derailed and up to 50 passengers have been injured. We have not yet heard of any fatalities, but keep in mind, this is very early in the game. They are just now shining spotlights, as you can see, and going through each train by train, trying to figure out who is injured and who is left on board these trains. We have seen a number of Twitter posts from passengers on the trains. They have given some kind of indication that there was no collision, just a shaking, and then suddenly off the rails it went. But if you look there at that first car, it appears to be some type of twisted metal, indicating that there may have been more to this than we're being told. The Associated Press, KYW from Philadelphia, still has not given us a great deal of information about exactly what happened. As we get more, Megan, get better pictures in this, we can get a much better idea of exactly the genesis of this impact on the train from D.C. to New York, making a turn in Philadelphia. Megan.
More coming in now, Trace. Thank you. As we hear that there were potentially up to 250 people on board. Again, Trace's numbers were up to 50 injured, but it's so hard to tell in the initial moments after something like this. That's all we know right now. The reports suggest there was no collision suffered by this train with another train or anything else, according to the initial reports. But the local law enforcement is describing this as a very active scene. That, according to BuzzFeed, which has spoken, it says, with the Philadelphia police dispatcher, who has confirmed the train had derailed at 10 p.m., called it a very active scene, reporting that she did not know how many people were injured or if there were fatalities. Again, all we have seen so far in terms of the pictures ourselves have been 2 tweeted out by a former congressman that show injuries, bloody legs, folks who have injuries on their legs. They appear to be okay. The people appear to be okay. They just are bleeding from their legs. As you can imagine, they have many of those injuries in a scene like this. And while it appears chaotic from the aerial shot, we are certain that first responders are on the scene and must be handling this. This is what they do. They triage situations like this. As you can see, some stretchers being pulled away. The one I can see now under the spotlight does not have a person on it. And there, as it lights up a little bit better, you can see the famous jackets that the firefighters wear as they run toward the danger, as opposed to away from it. And the men in blue, men and women in blue, they're on the scene trying to save lives, as they are charged with doing and do every day in every city in this country. That appears to be the first train of the car. On the overhead shot, you can see that there are several more trains right behind it, although we couldn't see exactly how many were flipped on their sides. Perhaps if there's any good news in this, it is the report that this train did not collide with something. And so you do not see the crush of metal on that first train that you sometimes do when you have 2 trains that have collided when they've gone off the tracks. Although, what are we seeing here? Frankly, I cannot see. The screen is too small. It does look like twisted metal. And I'm not able to make it out. But it does look like crushed and twisted metal. We're trying to get more information from you folks. Apologize. Bear with us as the first responders are busy doing what they are supposed to be doing. And all we have right now is the picture. And the picture is not good. Trace, what do we know?
Yeah, we also have, Megan, we're learning this is 188. That's the train number. Was supposed to get into Penn Station at 10:35, which means that there are people who may not realize the accident has happened, who may be waiting for loved ones or friends to arrive at Penn Station on this train. You can see there, we've been told there was no collision, but boy, the train on the top part of your screen, the car on the top part of your screen certainly looks like it impacted something. You can see that one appears to be where the most focus seems to be right now. There are clearly first responders up and down the tracks on all of the trains that derailed, but the ones at the very front there, it seems, as KYW starts to pan out a little bit and then goes back in, that seems to be where the buzz of activity is kind of focused on, Megan, clearly looking for anybody who might be trapped in the wreckage right now. Again, the numbers we have very early, that 50 people were injured, but really there's no way to tell at this point in time because it's so early in the game. You've got a couple of different views here, one from a little farther off and one, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, a little more focused on the actual collision impact area. We're still working to get a hold of Amtrak to get more information. As we do, we will bring it to you.
Trace, thank you. And that is obviously a twisted train car now that we can see it under better light aside the train tracks there. And now we're going to go into our Fox affiliate in Philadelphia that has got live coverage of the breaking news. Let's take a listen.
It could have hit something else out there, so we don't know what we're looking at. But, you know, we have been checking the Amtrak website. We've also called Amtrak to get a statement, but we've not been able to reach them, obviously, for them as well. This is an emergency situation. This is what we're seeing on there. They're saying that this train 188, traveling from Washington, D.C. to New York City, there's a service disruption. So that's what you're looking at. Certainly, that is an understatement. Yeah. It is more than a service disruption, but that is what is currently on the Amtrak website. If you were to look for your, friend or your family that's on this train to see what's going on, that's all you're going to find, that there's a service disruption. So we are still awaiting word from Amtrak itself to see what happened. But that, at this point, is the least of Amtrak's concern. It's the least of transportation officials' concern. First and foremost, right now on the top of mind is how do we find all these survivors in the dark? How do we get them the help they need immediately? And how do we secure this?
They are doing now. You can see those flashlights just working overdrive there. They're trying to grab all the people, see all the people that they can, whether people are conscious or not conscious. And we saw the picture on Twitter from former Pennsylvania Congressman Patrick Murphy. He was talking about the fact that he is okay, but he's trying to help others. There's a little more light there on that scene for a quick second. But again, this is the picture I was talking about. We have showed it to you. It's out on Twitter. Former Pennsylvania Congressman Patrick Murphy was on that train, and he mentioned that he's okay, but asked to pray for these people. And you can see this is maybe a different picture, but you can see the same kind of thing. There's chaos in there. That train is clearly turned over on its side and people are in need of help, and Patrick Murphy, the former congressman, was talking about please pray for these people, and I'm helping these people. So there are people helping. This is clearly a difficult situation. I can't see how many people are on that particular car. But
we don't know which car he's in either.
Exactly. He may have walked to another one, and but as we get a little wider view here as Sky Fox is zooming out, and there's some
buildings.
Yeah, that looks like more like an older building or maybe a factory or something. It doesn't look like anything residential, at least from this vantage point.
Well, they're going to set
up.
What they're going to set up, and this might be what we're looking. If you see If you see tarps out there, what they do on these types of situations is they set up a triage area. Yep. So they're going to put people on various tarps to say this person needs help immediately right now, critical, whatever the situation is. On this one, this person is in this particular condition. On this one, they're roughed up, but they're going to be okay. So they're going to go down that line, and the first responders will help the individuals that need help the most, kind of depending on the layout of the triage area. It doesn't look like that is what it is right there, but you certainly see, again, all the flashlights going on, looking around into every nook, into every cranny, trying to find whoever it is that needs help right now. And again, it doesn't help that this happened at night. It's dark out there, it's hard to see, but I will reiterate that we are just fortunate that we're not in the middle of some type of thunderstorm.
Absolutely. The weather is at least cooperative there, and you can see there the little more light. There's obviously a big spotlight from something up in the air, and we can get a little better of view there. It does look like kind of an old factory, excuse me, right there in that area. But as they continue to look for any survivors or anyone else needs help, of course, this is a situation that we're going to stay on top of. We got Fox 29's Bruce Gordon on the way. We hope that he's there in maybe 10 minutes or so we can check in with him to find out exactly what kind of area is this. I mean, how close is it to any residences? Again, just in case you've been just tuning in, you're watching Washington. This train was going from Washington, D.C. to New York City, and we understand there could be as many as 240 people on this train, reports of at least 50 people injured. And again, police are telling you that if you live in that area and you want to help, don't do that. This is not safe, so they don't want anyone coming out to this area. They're going to secure this area. So we know you want to help, and it's a natural instinct to help, but this is not what they want from you at this time. As we get a little closer zoom in here, yeah, it doesn't look like there's one of the cars. It looks like maybe one of the cars turned over there.
Okay,
or
and
maybe two of them.
Our Bruce Gordon is right now on the phone. Bruce, I know that you've been heading to the scene and you've been listening to all of this unfold. What are you seeing? What do you know?
It is an incredible scene out here. We are on the 2200 block of East Butler Street, right next to the Conrail Frankfurt Junction Yard. The sign, ironically enough, says, "Safety is our first priority." It is an incredible scene of police and firefighters, an army of both. I'm watching right now as a couple of firefighters drag a gurney up to the area where the crash has no doubt occurred. I spoke by phone a couple of minutes ago with former Bucks County Congressman Patrick Murphy. He obviously did not want to speculate in terms of the extent of the damage and the injuries and so forth, but he did say it does look very bad. And the photos that we've undoubtedly shared with viewers so far, one in particular showing what appeared to be the dining car at about a 45-degree angle, and a number of folks inside that car with blood on their forehead and blood on various parts of their bodies. Everywhere you look here on Butler Street, there are police officers, firefighters, vehicles of all shapes and sizes descending on this area. A fairly large crowd has gathered across the street on Butler here to see what they can see, which frankly from this vantage point is not a whole heck of a lot. But again, the helicopters are overhead. We've been showing you the Skyfox video of this incredible scene, multiple cars overturned. I can tell you I have traveled that Amtrak run on any number of occasions heading from New York to Philadelphia back and forth. And it is something that, frankly, you don't give a whole lot of thought to, the idea of a derailment, but something terrible has gone on here tonight. A couple of more vehicles passing us right now, an Amtrak pickup truck, another police car coming by right now. Again, an incredible number of emergency first responders, nothing like I've ever seen before, at least in this city. And they are continuing to flood into the area there of the Frankfurt Junction Yard, the 2200 block of East Butler, to see what they can do to help.
And Bruce,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just wondering. So you've pulled up to the scene here. You see all of this unfolding in front of you. Are there ambulances whizzing by? What is the status of getting these people out into hospitals?
We have not seen in our particular area a whole lot of ambulances per se. Mostly fire equipment, fire apparatus, and individual police cars, transit police cars. Another police van heading by us at a high rate of speed just now, and another police van, yet another police van. More of them heading down here. These are all police vehicles heading down down Butler Street here, one right after another. Again, an incredible number of these vehicles. It appears that everybody who is available is heading to this area. Quite a traffic jam, as you might imagine, just getting to this scene. But an incredible number of emergency first responders are here right now. But in our particular area, we don't see ambulances per se. We saw a couple of moments ago a young man with a white shirt on, untucked, flapping in the breeze as he walked. He appeared to be somewhat distraught, somewhat disheveled, may have been a passenger, not clear. We also saw a woman being escorted, an older woman who also appeared to be somewhat shaken up, being escorted by a couple of police officers. Also may have been a passenger, but not abundantly clear.
You know, hey, Bruce, I don't know if you're familiar with this part of the city. The shot that we're looking at right now from Skyfox, it looks like there's an old factory there. Are there homes or residences around this particular area that you know of?
This immediate area appears to be mostly industrial, at least formerly industrial, let's put it that way,
right.
But not as much residential in this immediate area. I can tell you that as you come in on this Amtrak run, the Northeast Corridor from New York, for example, much of what you see as you come into 30th Street Station is through sort of industrial and post-industrial areas of the city, in through this area, and through North Philadelphia, and so forth. And frankly, it is a rather depressing sight as you come into the city. Many factories that have been abandoned, vacant for many, many years. And this is a similar scenario here in terms of industrial, commercial, not as much residential, not a neighborhood per se, in the immediate vicinity, at least from what we can see.
Well, this is definitely a tragedy any way you cut it, Bruce, but I guess at least there's no row homes being taken out and people taken out. I don't know how close you can get to the scene, because I know that you don't want to get in the way of first responders saving people's lives. However, what we're looking at from Skyfox, let me just tell you. I mean, one of these things that we had just zoomed in, and now we're pulling out a little bit, it is a complete mangled mess of metal. I mean, it's twisted to the point that you cannot even recognize it. And I'm wondering whether that was, in fact, a train car, or whether it is some other, vehicle or thing that this, train slid into, because there's a lot of action going around there with flashlights.
It is an understandable question, actually, Lucy, because there are a lot of areas of wrecked cars and abandoned vehicles, almost looking like a scrapyard of sorts. As I say, I've traveled that route on many occasions on the Northeast Corridor. And so it is understandable that you wouldn't be able to tell whether it was necessarily part of the accident scene or just wrecked vehicles that have been there, for weeks, months, even years. I can tell you that theoretically, if this is in fact what we think in terms of the Amtrak run that would have been coming in from the direction of New York, theoretically the train should not have been traveling at all that high a rate of speed, because now there are multiple stops there, and as you head into 30th Street Station, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself in terms of speculating on speed and so forth. All I can tell you is that in theory, this was toward the end of the run where the train would be coming in, approaching 30th Street Station before long, and it's not a particularly high-speed run. But again, you don't want to do too much speculating there.
Exactly. Well, Bruce, we do know that the train was going from D.C. to New York City, and reports that we got was that the front of the train actually started to shift and then went off the rails. So yeah, you're right. We don't know what rate of speed it was traveling, but we can certainly see now there is a bit of a mangled mess. We're getting a better look now from Skyfox over this particular area, and just flashlights everywhere as these first responders are looking for anybody that might be have survived this particular accident.
Just interesting that the former Congressman Patrick Murphy was on this train and took some incredible photos. Again, the one that struck me was in the dining car, which appeared to be about at a 45-degree angle. And that gave you some sense of the desperation as people were trying to get out. The window was clearly broken to the right of the frame in that photo, and folks were obviously trying to climb out and help each other. Another couple of Philadelphia Fire Department vehicles have now come through. Special Weapons and Tactics Team truck from the Philadelphia Police Department has just entered the scene as well. And again, police and firefighters in numbers that I have frankly never seen before in the city in 20-plus years of reporting here. This is an incredible scene. We actually see a train to our right coming across an overpass, some sort of, it looks like a freight train of some sort. Sort of an interesting and bizarre sight in the midst of all of this. Not sure whether you're seeing our pictures or whether we are still seeing Skyfox at this point.
We've got Skyfox up right now, Bruce.
Yeah, we're trying to shoot some pictures via our live view equipment to give you a sense of what's going on here on the ground on Butler Street.
All right, no problem. Well, Bruce, we appreciate that, and we know we want to give you some time to get in front of the camera. We appreciate your insight there, and we'll check back in with you in just a few minutes, we hope. And now we're looking at some ground video here. Well, we're back to Skyfox now, but we also have a camera on the ground. It's given us some good ground video. We saw a lot of fire and emergency vehicles kind of coming in and out, but now we're back on Skyfox over this, looks like at least one car here on its side. And then, as Lucy talked about, there's something else inside there. I don't know if that's another train car or another vehicle that was just
it's just hard to tell in the dark
by this train. Right, it's just difficult to tell whether that's actually a train car or was another vehicle or something else that was on those tracks that was hit. But again, just to recap quickly, this was an Amtrak train 188 on its way from Washington, D.C. to New York when it derailed. We've got reports that there could have been up to 240 people on board, and reports right now, and of course it could change, that up to 50 people have been injured.
Yeah, it's rather amazing. And whenever there is a train derailment that involves a passenger train and it is loaded with people, as this one was, we were thinking possibly 240 passengers, it is going to be a bad outcome. People do not have seatbelts.